Dark and cold we may be, but this is no winter now. The frozen misery of centuries cracks, breaks, and begins to move. The thunder is the thunder of the flows, the thaw, the flood, the upstart spring. Thank God our time is now, where wrong comes up to meet us everywhere, never to leave us till we take the greatest stride of soul folk ever took. The Enterprise's exploration into God. But where are you making for? Takes so many thousand years to wake. But will you wake for pity's sake? From the English playwright and poet Christopher Fry. At some point before the beginning of time, or when time began, the One said, "Let there be light," and there was a big bang. And there was time and space and matter, and the dream of reality began. Now, it was no small feat for this universe to be created. It had to be ordered and balanced with incredible precision. If the energy of the Big Bang had been too strong, matter would have scattered too far apart, and the universe would have eventually disintegrated. But if the same energy had been too weak, the universe would soon have collapsed in upon itself. You get the picture. Let's just say that quantum physics had to be precise. The Big Bang occurred almost 14 billion years ago, and at about 10 billion years after the Big Bang, you and I, the living soul of humanity, were born into physical form. You and I were born on a small planet, circling a fairly average star located somewhere near the edge of a spiral galaxy. Now, there were more than 100 billion stars in this galaxy, and over 100 billion galaxies in the universe at that time. Make you feel small? Our beginnings were indeed humble. A few protein molecules decided to get together and to make something of themselves, and voila, we were born. It took more than 2 billion years for us to become more than a single cell creature, but then we discovered sex, and we really took off. About 300 million years, we found ourselves emerging into our present form. And about 200,000 years ago, we became Homo sapien, wise man. Then in the blink of a cosmic eye, some of us were walking on the moon. And we'd learned language and music and science and poetry and many wonderful things. And we had begun to understand that we understand. We became aware that we were aware. And now we are beginning to discover, I believe, what we really are. As Christopher Fry says, we're beginning to awaken from the dream. As the myth of Adam and Eve, we're beginning to discover the purpose of our existence, to know both good and evil, right and wrong, pleasure and pain. By experiencing the polarities of life in this dream universe, we're beginning to discover why we are here. To be the eyes and ears and feet and hands of the One. To know ourselves as limited, temporal human beings and simultaneously to know ourselves as unlimited, existing beyond time and space, ever present and eternal. We, in essence, are the one dreaming that she is us as an individualized personality. Our history up to this point has been a real mixed bag of light and dark. We've soared to great heights, and in many ways we've descended much lower than the beast. In the past century, more than 100 million people were killed by war and genocide. In the last decade of the 20th century, over 100 million children died of starvation and malnutrition. The 20 years of the 21st century, we find ourselves at a crucial juncture of this gradual awakening as we fill the ocean up with plastic. We essentially have overdeveloped knowledge and underdeveloped wisdom. The problem lies in the tremendous imbalance and the lack of integration between our inner and our outer selves. It's clear that we have failed to parallel our rampant external development with a corresponding growth in self-awareness. We've created external wealth and internal poverty. We've developed a culture that attempts to fill its inner emptiness with material possessions, with pleasure, with entertainment, with celebrity worship, and social status. In many ways, it would seem that the dream of the one before time has become a nightmare in time. What's the solution to this nightmare? How can we change the bad dream into a happy one? How can a permanent solution be found to helping us wake up? Something's keeping us asleep. What is it that's keeping us in this slumber? I don't know. In the biblical story of creation, Adam falls into a deep slumber. And you will notice that nowhere in the story, nor anywhere else in the Bible, does it say that Adam woke up. It's not mentioned anywhere because in many ways it has not happened. Adam remains asleep. The vast majority of people do not know who or what they truly are. And this ignorance is contributing to destroying all of us. It seems to me that waking up to who we are, to our deep interconnectedness, and to what is happening to a planet without this awareness has become an evolutionary necessity. I'm reminded of the Fillmores who started Unity, how they used the biblical account as a metaphorical framework for studying the growth and development of consciousness. For them, the Bible was a symbolic representation of humankind's journey from subconsciousness to consciousness and to superconsciousness. For them, Jesus represented the superconscious, the vehicle for our experience of truth. I am the way, the truth, and the life. And therefore, within your very essence, you are the way, the truth, and the life. At the close of the New Testament, the writer says, I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, "See, the home of God is among mortals." There it is. And if he had been awake enough, he could have said, "See, the home of God is among mortals who know themselves to be one with God." That's our vision and our hope for the future. We humans have two very powerful forces, internal forces, pitting us in opposite directions. We have a drive to maintain our concocted ego identity, while at the same time remaining asleep as to who we actually are. And yet there's another drive, a drive to grow and evolve and to become more than we believe ourselves to be. Throughout our history, there have been those rare individuals, like Jesus, like the Buddha, who have spoken of this. And they've said, "Look at how you're living. See what you're doing and the suffering that you're creating." And they pointed to the possibility of awakening from the collective nightmare of normal human existence. The world was not ready for them yet, and yet they were and are a vital and necessary part of human awakening. Some of the teachers were reviled or killed. Others came to be worshipped as gods. So eventually religion itself, to a large extent, became divisive and an ununifying force. They became ideologies, belief systems that people could identify with and to use to enhance their false sense of self, and therefore strengthen our separateness from one another, from the family of the earth. And yet, in spite of all the insane deeds perpetuated in the name of religion, the truth to which they point still shines at the core, if we could awaken to it. You may remember that old story about the Cambodian refugee camp in Thailand at the end of the Vietnamese War. The people were refugees from their home in Cambodia because Pol Pot had chosen to murder 2 million of his people. In many ways, the people in the camp had lost all they had. They had lost their land, their homes. They had lost parents, children, spouses. These were people who had been given great suffering. This was the kind of wrong that comes up to meet us everywhere. An American diplomat and a Buddhist holy man were touring the camp one day, and they decided to hold a Buddhist ceremony. They did not know if anyone would come. Perhaps they had forgotten or were too afraid, but they put up a sign saying, "Buddhist ceremony tomorrow. Please come." And the next day, more than 10,000 Cambodian refugees gathered at the spot. And the holy man took his place and began with the prayers that open a Buddhist ceremony. And then he chose to recite the words of a single verse from one of their sacred scriptures. "Hatred never ceases by hatred, but by love alone is healed. This is an ancient and eternal law. Hatred never ceases by hatred, but by love alone is healed. This is an ancient and eternal law." As he recited the verse over and over again, the people began to pick up the chant, one by one, tens by tens, thousands by thousands. the people took it up. And the words took them to the deepest place of oneness and healing. They had every reason to hate and to seek revenge, and yet they chose to go in that moment to a place of awakening that would take them to the deepest healing they could find. And the deepest healing they could find was the place of loving kindness, where they could affirm that their story was not about Pol Pot, but their story was about their own deepest heart and the most fertile resources of their own spirit. This is the place where they went. And it is the place where we can go as those who choose to awaken to our deep interconnectedness to the one who is nothing but love. It's the place where we remember who we are in God, and where we remember from whence comes our strength and our courage and our clarity and our grace and our wisdom. Let's use this Christmas season, if you choose to go to that place of awakening to the one who is nothing but love. Thank God our time is now, huh? When wrong comes up to meet us everywhere, never to leave us until we take the greatest stride of soul folk ever took. The enterprise is exploration into God. But where are you making for? It takes so many thousand years to wake. But will you wake for pity's sake? And I wish all of you a happy Christmas season as you awaken to your oneness in